how's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Blair Witch Project from 1999. This is directed by Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, and stars Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard. And I think I should probably give this film a special introduction. It is actually 25 years old now, so maybe not everybody knows the history behind this one. So if you're not familiar with the Blair Witch, let me do a quick rundown. Basically, the movie that you see here was not what the project was intended to be. This film started out life as a super low-budget indie documentary about a small-town legend, the Blair Witch. However, the filmmakers would go into the woods and they would sadly get lost and no one would ever see them again. Well, quite controversially, a year later, someone did find their tapes, and the directors, Myrick and Sanchez, would purchase them and edit them and, actually distribute this footage into theaters. Needless to say, it was quite controversial, and some people found it really disturbing, but to see the last few days these people were recording, to see them get lost and go deeper and deeper into the woods and start to lose it, and plus, I don't want to say too much, but there's implications towards the end of the film that someone was messing with them, and yeah, it gets really dark and a lot of people found it hard to watch, but yeah, needless to say, a lot of people talked about this film in the 90s, so if you're unfamiliar with it, I'd say it's better to not know too much about how the film goes and what goes on, and to just experience it. So if you don't know much about the film, don't do any more research, just put it in and watch it and see this, creepy little film. Just go in not knowing too much, I'd say. Pause the video here and come back after you've seen the film, okay? It really is better not to know too much of anything, so you can pause and come back later. Okay, so if you're here, you know the truth. The Blair Witch is fake. But we didn't know that back in the 90s. Yeah, back in the 90s, this was like the environment to make this movie. It's something that'd be so hard to replicate today. The early internet was just starting out, and you could go on and spread rumors, and things would circulate virally, and people would be arguing and debating and talking about the backstory of the Blair Witch. And I remember even hearing the creators of the movie hear some bit of lore and go, I don't think we made that up. Someone else made that up. And it was such a rumor, and to be honest, a lot of people didn't know if this movie was real or not. And when people found out, that became the big thing, is to go up to someone and say, you know the Blair Witch is fake, right? They have you fooled. The Blair Witch isn't real. And found footage really wasn't a huge thing. The technique had been used a few times before. I think the first case was Cannibal Holocaust, but there really wasn't too many found footage films, and this would start the initial boom. This is the movie that defined it as a genre, and eventually we would get Oren Peli making Paranormal Activity, and I think he even said that he was surprised there wasn't more found footage films and wanted to make one in this style, and well, after that, the floodgates really were open. It would be really hard to do this sort of thing today, to really convince people today, but I have to say that that's where a lot of the movie's critics really don't get it. Yeah, it would be cool if more stuff happened. Yeah, you don't see much, and yeah, the cinematography is kind of shaky, but if it was too clean-cut and you saw too much, we would know it wouldn't pass. But this movie feels so real and so incredibly raw. It really does feel like a real event. Even if you watch it knowing it's fake, it really does feel real. And there's a few things. I mean, we open up the sort of Blair Witch formula you start off learning a bit about the legend. We get to see the crew interviewing some locals, and some people don't know much about the Blair Witch. Other people have been hearing the legend their whole life. And there's a bit of inconsistencies, and there's a bit of different stories. Like, there's one story about a guy, I guess he was influenced by the Blair Witch, I'm not entirely sure, but he, like, kidnapped 7 kids and put them in his basement. And there was also another one about, like, a girl that had been gone for, like, 3 days, and she came back talking about a woman who was like floating above the water or something like that. There's a whole bunch of weird and different creepy little tales to the point where, you know, okay, people think and they've thought for quite some time that something evil lives in that woods, but we really don't know what it is exactly. And that is the cool part about the legend, is kind of not knowing, kind of scrapping and trying to figure stuff out and trying to put the pieces together when you have just enough to know there's a puzzle, but not enough to know what the picture is. That's really interesting, and the actors themselves really do sell it. All the actors feel real and naturalistic. The way their dialogue is more improv-y, and, you know, they'll swear and they'll say things that people said in the 90s, and they really do feel realistic. And I think part of that is they weren't given a script per se. I think the deal was every night they were given instructions as to like the basic beats as to what they should do, but in turn they just had to kind of figure it out, and some things were surprises. And actually keeping him in the woods that long, some of the stress is real stress and not just them acting. And I do like all the characters, you know, Heather being the leader, the director of this documentary, and the idea that, you know, she's professional but still kind of young and still wants to hang loose and party a little bit. And then you get like Josh, who's the most 90s dude ever, really capturing the feel of people of that time. And then Mike is kind of the one people joke with, you know? So you get a good little trio of characters, and we start off laughing and joking and not taking things too seriously, and then, oh, we don't know where we are. We're a little bit screwed, and you can see going from knowing they're a little bit screwed up into we might actually die. Just the getting lost part of this movie, that scale of, you know, it setting in and them getting mad and fighting with each other and going a little nuts, that is so realistic and so dark. But then you get whatever it is messing with them waking up and finding rocks that are all stacked outside of their tent. Someone was outside of our tent late at night when we're lost and alone in the woods. And of course, the famous stickmen. Who made them? Why are they hanging in a tree? Is it some curse against us? And I really like just how little you know, but the idea that something is out there, something is going to get you. And I will say that even if you know the movie's fake, it does feel so real, and that threat is just right behind your head, but you never see it. And it is such a creepy film. Really real, really raw. It's a case of everything working and coming out at just the right time where people would believe it and people would talk to each other on the internet and people would buy into it a little bit more. And yeah, this really is a horror classic, and I can see why it was one of the films that really shaped found footage into what it is. And I would say essentially the first. I mean, technically Cannibal Holocaust came out before that, but that's not quite as strict a found footage film as people think. This one really solidified the genre and made it into what it is today, and we would get so many cool movies because of it. So yeah, if you haven't seen The Blair Witch, go check it out. Again, no, it's not cinematic, and no, there's not going to be big in-your-face things, but that's the point of the realism. It can't do too much or it breaks the style, which is something a lot of later found footage movies would forget about, and we get cheesy little messes. And it's a case of, see, this is why you don't really want the thing you want. Overall though, Blair Witch is cool, creepy, raw, and realistic. seriously go watch it. Definitely a classic film. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my found footage movies playlist, which is getting kind of long. You can see me talk about things like VHS, Paranormal Activity, The Last Exorcism, Houses October Built. The genre did get pretty strong. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist here. Have a good day now.